Hey everyone, Micah here with EbikeSchool.com, and today is the day that many people, including myself, have been waiting for. I have received my mini electric truck from China, and we're going to unbox it. Now you guys might have seen my last video. If you didn't, I'll put a link up here somewhere where I covered how I bought this electric truck from China. I video chatted with the factory, got to see everything, it packaged up. And then later in this video I'll go over how the shipping process went. I don't want to delay the unboxing too long. I just want to show you real quick some of the things that I didn't expect. The cage here they built around it is pretty beat up. Whatever they loaded on top of this in the container really crushed the cage down. All these bars are really bent. And as you come around you can just see there's a lot of damage to the cage. In the back here it was pretty beaten up. Whatever was loaded on top of this thing pretty much crushed the cage. But it seems like it didn't quite reach the top level of the truck, so I think it'll be all right. So without any further ado, let's grab some tools and start unboxing this thing and see what the heck I bought. So I've got a slight feeling this is going to be Tetanus City. No one's seen better days. We're getting there. Here's a mostly exposed truck. Oh, all right, you ready for this? Oh, here it comes. She's a beauty. I think it's unlocked. Here's the roof rack. There's the bed rack. Here's the front bumper. Wasn't expecting a bed liner, so it's gotten pretty chewed up from all the pieces that were in here. Don't know how long that's gonna last, maybe a day. The battery's shipped turned off, so they told me I have to lift up the bed here and then push a button to turn on the battery. So let's see how that goes. This is not light. Also, I think I'm going against that hydraulic lift. Actually, would you mind coming here, Sapir, and just pushing that button? You see next to the red and the black wire, there's a button.
I pushed it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just seeing if it turns on. And nothing happened yet. All right, let me check with Robert. So it looks like turning the battery on at least got the hydraulic ram working. So that's a good first step. So here's a little voiceover from future Micah. At this point I solved one problem and ran into another. Robert texted me back and let me know there was another switch under the seat, so I got the master power turned on. But then I couldn't actually drive the thing off of the cage because there was a frame member that had been bent up into the way. It looks like at some point someone picked it up with a forklift incorrectly. So I had to cut that out to be able to roll this off. I think now it's going to clear the rest of the cage and not rip out any brake cables or the motor or anything like that, but we'll find out. Let's give it a try. Here goes nothing. I don't know if it's not powerful enough to overcome the... So at that point, I tried pushing the truck off and had my dad help, but we couldn't get it off because it couldn't actually climb over the cage itself. So instead, I had my dad get in and floor it while I pushed, and we managed to finally get it off of that cage. Of course, my wife was swapping batteries in the camera at the time, which I didn't notice in my excitement to get the truck out, so she missed that, but I caught it on the drone and in the time lapse. All right, so successfully gotten it off of the cage. Let's give it a little twirl here at low speed and see how it goes. So the suspension leaves a little something to be desired, but it seems to drive pretty well.
And that'll smooth out the ride.
It's a little quieter. And of course, at this point, the whole family wants to give it a whirl, so my dad was up next. Oh, it works. And then of course my wife has to give it a go.
Less disconcerting without the bed banging around.
Yeah, we can buckle it down. Also have a bad feeling that's as low as the wiper goes.
You know, there are other things that would concern me more. Does Ford know they took the Explorer name?
I think they'd have a problem if they did.
Good parking.
All right, so then after playing around with it for a while, went in and had lunch, came back out, put all of the accessories on it, the luggage rack on top, the bars in the back of the bed, the bumpers, the hubcaps, everything went on it. And then I could actually test it out the way it's meant to be driven, fully assembled. All right, so I've been playing with the truck now for a few hours. I'm starting to get to know it pretty well, and overall I am really impressed. I would say it's probably 85 to 90% awesome, and then there's about 10 to 15% of things I would like to see improved, but there's so much here to love. This is so much better than any golf cart, right? I mean, first of all, you've got this giant utility bed. It is fully enclosed. It's got electric windows. You roll up the windows. It's got electric locks. You can lock the thing. You've got seat belts. You know, this is not a just a little utility cart. It's not a buggy. It's not a golf cart. This is a small truck. It's very small, but it's a truck. It's even got this hydraulic dump bed. So there's a button right here behind the passenger seat. This also gives you a chance to check out the frame. Now I will say one of the things that could be improved is the welding is not great. I mean, it's pretty porous. It just doesn't look like a great weld job. The other thing is there are many places like on the cage up here where they just sort of did some tack welds and then they didn't go around and actually weld the entire tube. So the welding could definitely be improved. Another little quirk about this hydraulic dumping bed is when you go to put it down, you got to kind of help it a little bit and then it'll start to go on its own. And then partway down, it sometimes will catch again and you got to give it a little more of a push to go all the way down. See, here it stopped. So if I push a little more, it'll keep going. So it needs a little bit of help, but overall it's a pretty cool feature. I also like that it's got the utility rack up here. It's got the rack back here. The only problem is these bolts that they gave me to screw it in aren't even bolts, they're just self-tapping screws. So I'm probably gonna replace this with some real bolts, make this thing a little sturdier. You can already feel it's rocking a little bit. So, you know, some improvements that can be made here, but overall, I mean, for a little truck, it's pretty nice. You even got these little tie-down areas where you can, you know, strap your ropes, tie-down straps, and hold things in. I like the little fuel door here that covers the charger spot. Just kind of a nice little touch. Looks like an actual fuel door. The thing has mirrors both sides. The funny thing is it's so small you can sit in the driver's seat and adjust your passenger mirror. You also get windshield wipers or a wiper. Which, you know, works great. The only problem is that it stops about halfway up. That's as low as it goes. So I don't know if I'll be able to adjust this down a bit, though then it won't go all the way over. In general, the lights I really like as well. So we've got lights, both sort of daytime running lights, and you can turn on the headlights. And then there are these spotlights up here. So you can turn those on as well. And the funny thing is, these used to say Jeep, and they've cut out the little Jeep logo here. And so you don't have the Jeep there anymore, but that was another one of these funny trademark things. Just like up here, we've got the Explorer, which obviously is a Ford trademark, so I don't know how they get away with that. Let me pop the hood here for you. So under the hood, you'd think you'd have a frunk, but not really. It's mostly taken up by the air conditioning. The compressor's actually on the inside. So in here, we've got the radiator for the air conditioning. And then we've got our little reservoir for the window washer fluid. But if you didn't have the AC, you could probably put like a tub or something in here, and then you'd actually have a frunk space. Now, I will say some of this looks like they've done a decent job of wire management. In here, it's all mostly tied down. In the back, there are some places, especially underneath the bed in the back, where they could have done a better job tying down some of those wires. Things like for the reverse camera, the wire's just kind of dangling there, and that's going to get ripped off if you don't tuck it up and zip tie it to something. Speaking of which, though, there's actually a backup camera in this thing, which is kind of crazy. Let me show you the inside. So in here, you've got a backup camera. If I put it in reverse, by the way, the gear shift is this little spinning switch here. I don't know why they went with the rotary switch, but that's what you get. There's a reverse camera. It does seem like it's angled down pretty low, so I want to play with the camera lens and see if I can point it back up. But you do get that reverse camera, which is cool. When you're not in reverse, you've got an infotainment system here. If I go to like movies or music, I don't have anything in there right now, so it'll tell me there's no file. I could put a USB flash drive or a little trans flash card. And if you go to Bluetooth, you can actually connect it to your phone, and I was playing music in it earlier. And then up here we have controls for the air conditioning. I actually added the air conditioning. It doesn't come standard in this model. So when you turn it on, it is quite loud. It's got 3 settings. And it actually works. I was surprised. You know, you can feel the cold air coming out. Now you can see a voltage dip. I'll go ahead and turn it off because it's very loud. You can see the voltage actually sag on the dash when you look at the voltage when you turn on the AC. So it's using a good bit of power. I need to look up exactly how much it's using or measure it. I spec'd this truck with a huge battery. It's a 60 volt and 100 amp hour lithium ion battery that's 6,000 watt hours, way more than anyone should really need. That's probably 50 to 75 miles of range. Obviously, I'm not going to need to go that far, but I wanted to put a pretty big battery in there just in case, and it allows me to do things like run that AC without worrying about the range. Like I mentioned before, there are electric windows, so right over here, you've got your switch. They actually go up really fast. So that's kind of a nice feature. You know, again, this is like a real small vehicle. You don't have these little crank windows. You have electric windows. I mean, this is all a real vehicle. The seats move forward and backwards. We've got a little glove box. We've got a parking brake. Now, I will say the parking brake here, it only works on like a slight hill. Even on the driveway over there where there's more of a hill, you start to roll back a bit. So the second parking brake is down here. You push the brake pedal with your foot, and then you push this red ball, and that locks the brake pedal. So it's kind of an odd parking brake, but it works a little bit better than the actual hand brake here, because you can just push harder on the brake pedal when you lock it. Now, I am a little bit worried about rusting. I will say that there's already some spots on this truck that are rusting. There's some things like if you look over here on these mounts, you know, the paint is peeling off and it's rusting a bit. And it's kind of interesting because if I, you know, bought this in the US and I had pieces of paint coming off, I'd be pretty upset about it. But this was a cheap truck that I bought on Alibaba. So these are the kind of things that you kind of have to deal with. You know, obviously you can't just like return this to China and say, I want one without a little bit of paint peeling on the mount. So it's one of the risks of purchasing something like this from Alibaba. I will say though that for the most part, the truck arrived in great condition. I've got, you know, a few small nicks in the paint, that sort of thing, though overall the paint is quite nice, but there aren't any real big dents or anything. I've seen a lot of people that have unboxed these Alibaba trucks and they've just been beat up during shipping. So I'm really actually quite fortunate that the truck arrived in, you know, one major piece and without any significant damage to it. One of the things I'm thinking of doing is putting in a bed liner. So if you come back here and look in the bed, they actually gave you this sort of cheap tarp thing here. But underneath, there's some dings, there's a bit of rust here. So I'm thinking of doing some sort of spray-in liner or something in the back here just to give it a little more longevity and not have this whole thing start rusting out immediately, because I do think that's going to be a concern. Now, I've spent a while telling you guys all the things that I think are so great about this truck. A few of the things that are a bit problematic you might be able to notice is that the suspension is not great. In fact, it's almost non-existent. I'm driving around on grass here that's actually pretty rutted out, so it's not the smoothest surface, but you're really bouncing around here, and the seats, there's not much padding in them either. So I would say that the suspension is probably the worst part about this entire truck. And if that's the worst part, then that's pretty good, because you go into this knowing it's not a luxury vehicle. So I'm not going to complain too hard about that. Another thing is I've got a few mystery clunks in here that I can't figure out where they're coming from. The bed does have some straps to lock it down, and that helps. But there's some clunking coming from up front that I'm not sure if that's the suspension or what. I've looked around, there's nothing loose, so I can't really tell where it's coming from, but there's some mystery noises here that are a little bit disconcerting. But other than the mystery clunking and the suspension that could use some existence, I would say that I am really quite excited about this truck and pleasantly surprised with how well it works and just how much of a real vehicle it is.
Okay, I think your viewers are gonna throw up.
Now you'll notice that I'm riding around off-road in all of this. This is my parents' property here, and that's what I basically got the truck for. They've got a lot of land, and this is basically serving like a mule or a buggy or an ATV for them, with the advantage that when it rains, as it always does here in Florida, it's enclosed. In the hot air, we've got air conditioning, there's a dump bed, all the things that golf carts can't offer. So the reason I'm doing all this off-road is because, and this is the answer to everyone who asked, is it street legal? It is not street legal. To be very clear here, no CHANG-LI vehicle is street legal, and anyone who says otherwise is sadly mistaken. So this is what is considered a neighborhood electric vehicle style vehicle. It only goes up to 25 miles an hour. It's got lights, blinkers, a seat belt in the driver's seat, not in the passenger seat. But that does not make it street legal, unfortunately. There are federal motor vehicle safety standards that apply to these vehicles at the federal level, and in order to be street legal, you basically have to have DOT compliant parts throughout the vehicle. And so this obviously doesn't, because it came from China, so nothing is DOT compliant. It has a seatbelt, it's not DOT approved. It's got blinkers, it's got headlights, but none of these are DOT parts. It doesn't even have a VIN that's registered with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Even though it technically does have a VIN, it's a Chinese VIN, so it means nothing in the US. So unfortunately, no, you're not allowed to drive it on the street. Did I? Yeah, all right. So I did a little bit of street riding just to see how it went, to make sure it could get up to its top speed, which with a tailwind, it did barely get up to 25 miles an hour. But this is obviously not something that I could try and take to the DMV and get a license plate for, or that I could just, drive around town in. If it was street legal, that'd be a different thing, because there are neighborhood electric vehicles that can do that. But because this came from China and it is not at all street legal, unfortunately I cannot. Here in Florida, there is another alternative, which is a golf cart conversion process that actually makes golf carts into street legal neighborhood electric vehicles. So you got to replace, windshield with DOT windshield. All the parts basically have to be replaced to be DOT compliant, and then you get it inspected by the state and they issue you a VIN number. So I might go through that process so I actually can take it out on the street, because that would be a lot of fun, but for now, this is unfortunately an off-road only vehicle. That being said, it is super useful in that purpose. Like I said, I got it from my parents' property here, and in the first day, we're already driving around, we're picking up fallen limbs, branches, palm fronds, bringing them to the burn pile. We're using it for all sorts of utility jobs out here, which is exactly the kind of thing that these little trucks are great for. It seats 2 people, it's got that dumping bed, it's decently powerful, it's got a 3,000 watt motor. Now that's not going to climb up any huge hills, and it does have a low speed gear if you do any hill climbing. The only problem with the 2-speed gear system is that the gear lever is down here by the side of the seat, and when I push it into the low gear setting, the door doesn't close because it impacts the little door pocket thing. So unfortunately, you can't actually use the low gear in this model of truck because the door won't close, or I guess you can use it, you just need to leave your door open. Otherwise, it's got a lot of that utility, it's just not a street legal vehicle, unfortunately. All right, so next up, everyone's asking how much did this thing cost? Well, when you find these trucks on Alibaba, you'll see that they're usually listed for about $2,000 or so, but that's not the complete picture. When you see that it says $2,000, that's just the price of the bare truck. It doesn't even have batteries. So the truck itself cost me $2,000, but immediately I had to pay another $1,000 to get a battery put in it. Now I got the best battery I could. Instead of getting lead acid, I got lithium, and instead of the, cheap 50 amp hour lithium battery, I doubled it for 100 amp hours. Next, I spent another $500 on other upgrades. I added the air conditioning and I added the dump bed in the back. Both of those things I think are just going to be super useful. Next, I had the biggest expense yet. This was the single largest expense, was actually getting it out of China and to me here. It was $2,200 just to put it on a boat and bring it to the port of Miami. From there, I had to pay another $1,100 when it came into the port of Miami, and that covered all of the customs and duties and the broker fee, because I had to use an import broker. On top of that, I had to pay another $800, which are the arrival charges, which is basically a ransom that the shipping company, or I guess it's technically the logistics company that receives it from the shipping company, charges you. There's no way to get around that, and it's all like just nonsense charges because they can, and you gotta pay it. If you want your truck, you just gotta pay them, unfortunately. But that wasn't the end of it. That just got my truck released in the port of Miami. But my parents don't live in Miami, so to get it several hours to their property, I had to find someone on Craigslist to truck it, and that was another $500. So all told, I am about $7,950 into this if I did my math correctly. And that is definitely more than I intended to spend going in. But that being said, if you look at what I got, a golf cart costs easily $8,000, and you could spend $10,000, $12,000 on a golf cart. And this is so much better than that. So I still think it's a pretty good deal, even though it's definitely more expensive than I intended for it to be. From here on out, I plan to do a lot of modifications to it. There's all sorts of interesting things you can do. My dad already wants to build something on the bed so that he can pick up the trash cans using the hydraulic dump and then carry them down to the road where they get picked up. They've got a really long driveway, so it's great that you can use a vehicle like this. Even just going and getting the mail. Instead of starting up a car and doing a few minute drive down the long driveway to get to the public road for the mailbox, now they can just hop in this thing and head down there. It's silly, right, to start up a 4,000 pound car and run a gas engine just to pick up a half pound of mail. So it makes more sense to burn a few electrons and do the same thing a lot more efficiently. Now, would I recommend to someone doing what I did, which is to just go on the internet and buy a truck like this from China? Probably not. There's a lot of risk in this. The good thing is that I knew that CHANG-LI was a reputable factory because I've seen other people buy their trucks on YouTube. I was pretty sure I was going to get my truck, so I was comfortable risking it. But I do not recommend just going out on Alibaba and plopping down thousands of dollars on what appears to be a good deal. Now, of course, there are some importers that are starting to bring in these Chinese mini electric cars to the US. But again, these things aren't street legal, and they're not even close to being street legal. So you got to be careful there as well. If I was driving this on the road and I got into an accident, my insurance isn't going to cover it because it's not a legal motor vehicle. The liability's on me. Even if I got pulled over for a traffic stop, the police could just take the car and they could confiscate it because you're operating a non-motor vehicle on a public highway. So it's something to be considered. I think these are definitely better off-road work type vehicles. And if you're considering getting one of these for road use, I'd be very careful about it for that reason. So there we have it, unboxing and my first day of testing my new tiny electric pickup from China. There's a few improvements that we've talked about that I think could be made, but for the price, it's a really awesome little truck and there's a lot of utility. Last but not least, before we go, it's time to announce the winner of the giveaway from my last video. And the randomly selected commenter is
Scott Roeder.
So congratulations, just let me know which one of my books you'd like. You can choose from my DIY Lithium Batteries, DIY Solar Power, the Ultimate Do-It-Yourself e-bike guide, or my newest book, The Electric Bike Manifesto. And let me know where to send it. And anybody else who wants a chance to win one of my books for free, all you have to do is put a comment down below. You can say anything you'd like, and hopefully you'll be the winner of the giveaway at the end of my next video. And if you don't want to wait that long, you can always find my books on Amazon. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.